Hello and welcome back, crafters. My name is Deepa from DeeZinesByD, and I have the final part of my sharing of all of the cards and projects that I've made for the Spellbinders March release. And this one is featuring the Open Road collection. So today I'm going to be focusing on this card here that kind of opens up and reveals a cute message along with a floating car. Here's the second card that I made that's just like a Mother's Day card, and the third card, which is just a simple happy birthday card using a few other dies. So these are all of the products that I have from the Open Road collection. There's a bunch more available in the shop. There's this beautiful embossing folder with clouds. There's this cute car, and then this stamp set where you can put together a bunch of different sentiments, and all of those little letters are meant to be used in the little balloons. So the first thing I did was a lot of die cutting. I cut out the car along with a little piece that would fit in the back there. Then I've also got all the little parts for the wheels out of some mirror cardstock. All of the balloons I've cut out of different colored cardstocks, and all of these tiny little pieces that go together to just make the little features of the car. Now, the first step is to basically add that backing to the car. Now, the reason for the backing is you see all those little outlines that are cut out. It's going to fill those in. If you wanted, you could have just stuck this onto some white cardstock and then cut the car out a second time and add those little lines in as like an inlay technique. Now I'm adding this little rack on the back of the car. It's a little difficult to do. I would recommend using some clear tape and just sticking it to the back of your piece there, or maybe in between that piece of cardstock at the back and then the front piece of cardstock would actually help a bit. Now I'm putting together the little wheels. I've got some silver mirror cardstock on top of some black cardstock, some black shiny cardstock. And then I did like the little axles or the little nuts in the center of the wheels with some white glitter paper. And I'm just sticking these little wheels on with some foam squares just to add a little bit of dimension there. So now you have all the little details on the car. So I have the bumper and fender, or what I would say are the lights on the front and the back of the car. These ones I cut out of some gold mirror cardstock. You can actually cut this out of whatever colors you'd like. I know that the back one is usually red, but as I said, you can do whatever you want with it. Now there are also these little pieces that add details to the back and front of the car, and I've used these in both the silver cardstock. There's also two other half moon pieces that you can use just above the wheels of the car to add a bit more detail there if you wanted to. I didn't actually use it, but it's completely optional if you want to use it or not. So that's the final card that you have there. That is my rose gold card for this card. Now I'm going to work on the card base, and what I'm going to do is first I'm going to cut a A2 size top folding card. So I will cut this piece of cardstock down to, at the 4¼ inch mark. And then I will turn and score it at 5½ inches. This creates my top folding. Then I'll take one edge, it doesn't matter which one at this point, and I will score it again at 2¾ inch. Now, once this is done, I'm going to end up with a score at 5½ inches and 8 inches up if you continue measuring on the card going upwards. I will fold the center of the card down, and then I will fold the second fold up. And this creates the card base here. So I also have the Spellbinders March 2021 large die of the month, and this was actually a nice Easter kit, but it has this little grass piece here, and I'm going to use it to cut out the grass from green cardstock. And as you can see, you actually get two pieces from that one cut. So I'm actually going to use that to create a layered piece of grass. Now I've got the Up in the Clouds embossing folder, and I'm going to just put that entirely folded card base in there and put it through my die cutting machine to add pressure. Now I've shown this in another video. You do get a portion that's debossed versus embossed, but nobody is going to notice that. The clouds are a bit upside down. I'm telling you, no one's going to notice, especially once you add the ink here. You also get a little bit of a line where that fold is. Again, nobody's going to notice once you put everything on there. So I'm using my Tumble Glass Distress Oxide ink, and I'm just generously adding it, and I'm not adding it in an even manner at all, because when you look at the sky, you get lots of variation of blue, especially with the clouds, right? So I'm trying to leave little portions of the clouds a little bit white and portions a little bit darker blue, and just it creates that sky, makes it look a little bit more natural. Now you can see how this is going to look with the grass. So I'm actually going to attach that now. And I've attached that bottom layer, which is the negative piece of the grass with just some Tombow dot runner, and the top piece I'll attach with some foam squares to create that bit of dimension. As you can see, there was a line from the die on that first piece of grass. So the second piece is kind of covering that up. Now with those edges chopped off, it looks perfect. Now I'll go ahead and I'm going to start adding all of the little letters to my balloons. So I'm going to be spelling out for you, and I'm just using my Versamark ink to add some of that embossing ink, and I'll be embossing it with some Altenew rose gold embossing powder, which has more of a goldy tone. So I chose to do this the complicated way and pick up each balloon, but when I did this for the second row, what I did was I put it onto some washi tape in a strip, and then I added the embossing powder and I added the heat to melt the powder, which worked way better. So lesson learned, don't do this one by one, attach it all to the sticky side of washi tape in a row, and then do all of that stamping and heat embossing. Now I've also got the main sentiment, and I'm stamping that down, and I'm again going to emboss it with the Altenew rose gold embossing powder. And once I'm done that, I'm also going to cut that out to create a nice little sentiment strip. Now I want to add that hidden sentiment to that center panel of the card base, and I'm using my Tim Holtz stamp positioner to do this. I do recommend using a stamp positioner because if it doesn't stamp well the first time, you have the ability to double stamp. Now I use my VersaFine Claire Nocturne ink, which was perfect because I didn't have to stamp more than once, but if I needed to, I had the option there. Now, what I have to do is create a bit of a slit. Now this little acetate piece is going to go through that little fold there. So what I have to do is kind of measure the length of that. I made 2 tick marks, and then I'm going to join it with a ruler using a sharp knife. Now this just gives me a nice clean edge. It gives that cut, and I'm ready to insert my acetate. Now the acetate is important to keep the structure of those balloons attached to the card because I will be attaching them with string. If I didn't use the acetate, the card would simply flop onto the card. So the acetate's very important, and you don't really see it because you can see through it, and that is the magic of the floating car. So I've basically lined up the car exactly where I want it so that it's going to sit on the grass, and when I open it, it's not going to cover up the hidden sentiment. And then I'm attaching it to the acetate, and then I'm also going to attach that acetate to the back of the top of the card. Now that's all nicely attached and works well, I'm going to use a bit of washi tape just to hold down this top panel so that I can position all of my balloons on top and stick them down nicely. So the way I did this was to do the first row of balloons, the 4. And once I've added those balloons, I'm adding the strings. And the reason why I'm doing it this way is because the second row of balloons is going to sit over top of those strings. So I didn't want to have to kind of tuck the strings behind. This just makes that a little easier. Now again, another lesson learned here. I attached the balloons and then I decided to add some foam to the back of these strings and then attach them to the balloon. It's a little more complicated, a little harder to do, but it is doable. The better way to do it, which is to take your balloons, attach your string with the foam squares, and then attach the balloons to the card, is what I did for the second row and was much easier to do. Now I showed a bit of it earlier, but when the way I make all these strings the same size is I basically measure out one piece and then I just keep folding it in order to create the same size and just cut all of the folds. So you can see here I've done that other method for the bottom row and it worked way better. Then all I have left to do is collect all of that string at the back of that car and then just attach it with a little bit of clear tape. And then I can just cut off all of those little extra overhanging bits and my flying car is ready to go. So I'll remove that tape to kind of see it in action. And you can see it sits on the grass, and then as you open up the card, it floats upwards and you see that little hidden message. Now I have to mention that this card was inspired by a couple of movies. First off, when I saw all these balloons, I thought of the movie Up. And then when I saw the car, I thought of Grease and the car going up in the sky at the end. So this was kind of a culmination of both of those movies. As you can see, I added a bunch of extra balloons because I thought those 6 little balloons were not going to be enough to carry that big heavy car. And it just really, again, added to that look of the house with the balloons in the movie Up. And then I added just a few more actually, stray balloons underneath the car, and I'm adding the string in with a Micron black pen. So my final step again is to bling up the card like I normally do. I'm adding a bunch of these nail art gems. They are AB in color, so they shine pretty rainbow colors. And I'm adding a bunch of different sizes on the background, and then I'm adding these small little ones in pairs on the balloons. And here's my final card. So you can see you've got the for you on this special day, and you open the card upwards and you get that cute little sentiment on the inside with the floating car and the extra little balloons flying away. So I hope you've been inspired to create a card like this for yourself with the little hidden message and the floating car. All of these products that I've used are linked on my blog, and I do appreciate if you happen to buy through the links that I have. I'll get a bit of a commission at no extra cost to you, and I would really appreciate it, especially if you were inspired by my work. If you liked my video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I guarantee you I have a lot more inspiration coming in the future. Overall, I hope you've enjoyed the Spellbinders March release, and I hope to see you again for Spellbinders April release. Bye!